Yep.
I guess you want to welcome everybody to the meeting. My name, of course, everybody knows, is Bill Lovett. And we're not here tonight to upset anybody because we are going to talk about some flags. So don't be offended, okay, until you fully understand the story of the flags. And we're going to give you some history on that, some indication. This is a very appealing flag, you would say that, okay, because it's more decorated than that one over there. But there's definitely a difference between the two flags. And a lot of us already know this, but we just want to clarify it a little bit more. Now, the first thing we want to do is have the Pledge of Allegiance. So whichever flag you feel like you want to pledge to, go for it. So if you would stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated, please. Bow with me just a moment. Heavenly Father, we thank you for what you've given us. We thank you for the time that we have to study here together. We ask that you be with us, Heavenly Father, with the things that we do and say. Help us to try to understand your will more and try to understand you more through study and through experience in our lives. Go with us as we do this meeting. In Christ's name we pray, amen. Okay, first off, got handouts. Bob, you want to take care of those? Take a couple of them. I got 50. So whatever's left over, we'll leave here. Okay, 3 kinds of flags we're going to talk about. Page 1 goes around all the way over there. Take a look at it. Kind of study it a little bit. Pass it on. Page 2. And through the meeting, we'll just go through these, okay? And page 3. Those are the flags. Now, particularly tonight, we're going to talk about the Admiralty flag. One thing I do want to, and this man right here has studied the flag, so anything that I say, please correct me if it's wrong. This is a phoenix. I got this off the top of that standard over there, or whatever they call it, a pole, flagpole, and there's one up there. What does this mean when this is over the flag, any flag? My understanding, it means dominance. Okay, so there's 2 kinds of these birds,
Wings up, wings down.
so-called birds. One's an eagle. It's my understanding that it represents Rom, and the other one's a phoenix. And what does that represent?
That's new birth. A phoenix is new birth.
Right, but what?
Rising from the old ashes.
What does it represent as far as a church?
A church?
It's my understanding it represents the Pope. That's what my understanding is. Got to study on it, okay? All right, so this one no fringe. This one has fringe. You want to show them your hat? There's no. Okay, which one of these came first?
This one.
That boy right there. That's a peace flag. This one. Whoa. This is a peace flag. Okay? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read you a little bit. Very, very short. Everybody see our former President Obama in front of the flag? Okay? So let me see if I can read you this. Why does every heart ring true for the red, white, and blue? What about the gold fringe flag used by the military, hung at all courts, schools, and government buildings? It all has to do with the British Maritime Admiralty Law of Flags. Hear anything about American in there?
No.
Okay. This is a well-known, this is also known as the British Maritime Military Law, and this is why the American flag has a gold fringe when displayed in the courts of the United States. You find the same in government buildings and federally funded schools. The gold fringe is a legal symbol indicating that the court is sitting under British maritime law and the Uniform Commercial Code. Where are we sitting? Right now, where are we sitting? If this flag is flying, where are we sitting? What I just read you. And how do you determine that? It's called the Four Corners Doctrine. The four corners of this room, within the four corners of this room, is British jurisdiction. Okay? It is not American. Okay, let me read some more. Anyone entering that ship port accepts by doing so that they are submitting to the law indicated by that flag. So when you walk through that door, you're submitting. If this flag is flying, you're submitting to this flag. This is like a ship. This building in dry dock. Isn't that amazing? It's like a ship in dry dock. Okay, so judges refuse to replace the flag with one without a fringe when asked by defendants who know the score, because that changes the law under which the court is sitting. That's saying the same thing. That changes the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction. If you appear in a court with a gold fringe flag, your constitutional rights are suspended and you are being tried under British maritime military merchant law. That's from David Icke. You know him? Yeah. David I-C-K-E. You don't know him? Write his name down, YouTube him. Yes. David I-C-K-E.
It's Admiralty Tribunal courts that you're in.
Exactly.
It's a tribunal.
Exactly. Now let me read you this. International Maritime Admiralty Law. The law of the high seas began in Sumeria, was perfected in Rome, and continues to this day. Jordan Maxwell has explained that the way we trade commerce today is modeled after the Masons, Templar, Knights, 1,000-year-old system. Where are they located on this earth? England. England. Right. There is a city-state within London that there are 12 banks that exist there, and they're controlling the commerce of the world. Okay? We're talking about shipping in a sense, but you can ship on land too. Now, let me read you this. Notice how, regardless of whether you send a product by air, water, or land, you ship it. Ship. The ship pulls into its berth and ties to the dock. Dockets? Dock stamps?
Documents.
Documents? Very good.
Doctors.
Doctors. Thank you. Okay. The captain has to provide the port authorities with a certificate of manifest declaring the products he has brought. Through a legal loophole the royals have created, U.S. citizens are considered property of the Queen. Are y'all listening to me? Under British maritime law. Since we are born of our mother's water from her birth canal, we are thereby a maritime product, a shipped commodity. Our mothers were delivering a product under maritime law, and that's why we are born in a delivery room. That's why the dock signs your birth certificate, your certificate of manifest. You're kept in a maternity ward. Why a ward? No other hospital areas are called wards. Prisons have wards and wardens. The United States Corporation, that is what we're living under right now. Not anything to do with the Constitution. The United States Corporation came about just after the Civil War. The Act of 1871 was passed by Congress, creating a separate form of government for D.C., essentially turning it into a corporation. It was decided that employees would be called citizens, so when you say in court or on paper that you are a citizen of the United States. You are not a free American, but an employee of the United States Corporation. Now, one more reading, and I will turn it over to Roger. Everybody getting a good look at those flags? I'm just going to read some short parts here. Oddly enough, many people think that the law of flags is an outdated relic of the past. Not true. Indeed, every ship at sea is required to be registered with a particular country and must fly the flag of that country. How about this flag? Is this the flag of any country?
No. It's a corporation flag.
Wings are up or wings are down.
This is not, if you take this flag and put it on a ship and put it out to sea, it's not recognizable. Okay? So there is a gentleman within our group that would refer this to as a pirate flag. Because a flag that is, if a country, every country has a flag. And if there's a flag out there that's not recognized by any country, it's my understanding it's a pirate flag. Okay? So we learn, don't we? Okay. So, and it must fly the flag of that country. That is international maritime law. Law of the sea. Commercial law is the very day. I don't understand what that means. Your flag informs others who you are and if your nation is currently at war. Okay? Before 1940, no United States flag, either civil or militarily, routinely flew over the state and private buildings within 48 states. So what flew? Remember? State flag for that particular state. The familiar Stars and Stripes flag was actually the U.S. military flag of peacetime. That's that flag. Okay. U.S. military, territorial, or ensign flag of peacetime. Prior to World War II, this flag was flown primarily at U.S. military installations and on U.S. ships as its ensign for nationality under maritime law within the territories of the U.S. Of note is the fact that U.S. territories, before they became states, have always operated under military law. It's why their governors were most often U.S. Army generals or civilians who were required to obey the U.S. military. The Constitution does not apply in U.S. territories. Instead, territories operate either under military law or maritime admiralty law. Just skip over that. This part's pretty important here. On the seas, the oceans, navigable rivers, the law is different. It is variously called maritime law, law merchant, admiralty law, commercial law, in which the common law and the Constitution do not apply. And this is what this court system is in this county. Bob, what kind of flags you got flying over there? In which areas did you find it?
In the commission meeting room.
In the BOCC.
In the
What's the jurisdiction in the BOCC, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So you found that also in the
sheriff's office.
and in the courtroom. Ron Jones sent me two photos. One BOCC, this flag flies. On the courtroom, this flag flies. Okay? So when you walk into that courtroom, you're in another jurisdiction. Even, I think, apparently with the BOCC. Because the BOCC is actually a corporation. Okay. It's administrative in nature. Do we have administrative courts now?
Yes.
They all
It's
are.
all about money.
There's no more judges, there's administrators.
They're administrators. It's all about money. rather than judicial. In early and mid-1900s, the common law in America was slowly replaced by statutory commercial law. Does that mean it's gone away?
No.
Thank you. So what is it called now if you bring an action in common law instead of administrative admiralty law? What is it called? What do you bring?
A claim.
Complaint or
A claim.
Which is called a superior court of record. That's the way it works. You have to learn it. You have to learn it. Because we've not been taught it, right? We weren't taught there are two jurisdictions in this country. That's one jurisdiction. That's the other. But this is the one that's dominating us. This is the one that's hurting us. Because it's run by somebody that's not on the land, they're on the sea. Everybody follow that? In fact, the entire U.S. Code was replaced by the UCC, thereby divorcing all U.S. statutory law from the common law and tying it instead to maritime admiralty. Commercial law in which you have no rights, only privileges, granted to you by the government. Since 1935, institutions of Social Security and the Buck Act of 1940, the federal government has entirely circumvented the Constitution. Now, the federal government has done that. But does the Constitution still exist? Is it still alive?
Yes.
It absolutely is. Now, and I didn't realize that until the past year. I was pretty discouraged until I found out it really does exist. And still works. Has overlaid federal territorial jurisdiction on the sovereign states, bringing them under the admiralty military jurisdiction of law merchant. The UCC, the law of creditors and debtors. Under the international law of the flag, the gold fringed U.S. military flag signifies that one is entering maritime admiralty jurisdiction equivalent to military law, martial law during wartime, which actually, to my understanding, we were under martial rule, which is a much milder form of that. So, the important thing that we all have to learn, again, is that there are two jurisdictions in this country. There's this one, and there's this one. Now, we are working to bring this one back and to have this one not be here anymore. And that's going to be a monumental effort because the total system is tied in to this. And with that, Roger, I give you the floor. Did everybody get a copy of one of these?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Dowdell, you're up.
Thank you, Bill. First of all, my name is Roger Dowdell, in case anybody doesn't know me, and I'd like to ask any questions about what Bill covered. Anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, both flags are U.S., period, corporation. The true flag of this country is neither one of those.
That's true.
He's wearing it right there.
On his hat, right?
Even before that one, before the Stars and Stripes.
What was the one before this?
Don't tread on me. That is this country's flag. Snake, don't tread on me. Now, do you know how to arrest that flag and get it out of marine jurisdiction and back onto land? We are supreme law of the land by Constitution. You must have that flag arrested. There's only one way to do it.
Yeah.
You contact the Army. That gold fringe is only authorized on military 305 or 205 Army regulation. Report that flag to an Army post, not Coast Guard, not Marines, nobody else, Army only, and tell them to arrest that flag. They will steal that jurisdiction, and it must be done through the color guard, believe it or not. That's their job. They respect and keep that flag honorably. And our courts are not doing so. But the Army doesn't do it. They don't follow it because nobody can complain, and they cannot do anything without complaints of the people. The government is the people.
Has anyone, to your knowledge, tried to complain to the Army
Yes.
to arrest the flag?
Yes.
And what
Matter of fact, there's paperwork right now for Leavenworth, and we're waiting for come back from the color guard. Yeah.
Could you give those names and numbers to us, please, to Roger? Because he's very interested in tying those people in with some of the other people. That
Right. Well, one of the things that people don't realize that in the law of the land, supreme law of the land, which is our organic constitution, we have a right to contract. But because of administrative law, all right, contracts are under presumption. That's why they keep getting away with everything they do. Nobody ever bothers to rebut the assumption. You walk into any so-called jurisdiction, all right, rebut it right away. Just rebut it right away. I bring in evidence of the Declaration of Independence. Don't bring up the Constitution. You don't have any constitutional rights. Your rights come from your Creator. The Constitution was put in place to protect those rights. You follow me?
Yes, sir.
All right. The only thing that mentions the Creator God is the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution. You cannot have protected rights of your Creator if you do not bring in the documentation that is recognized by the established law of the land on this soil. And you can take that S-O-L-E, S-O-U-L, either way you want. It's very important to have that flag arrested. Get it out of that jurisdiction. You can get anybody who's standing, by the way, there's one other thing while I'm thinking about it. On the bird on top, whether it be eagle or phoenix, all right, the jurisdiction even goes a little higher, whether the wings are up or whether the wings are down, as to who gets the money. Because it's all about money, because that flag is all about contracts, maritime law. Maritime law is strictly contracts. You have a right to contract, even under the law of land. Don't go into contract with them. Rebut it right off the bat. I do not fall under your jurisdiction.
Charter County, I like it.
For clarity,
That thought
though,
is becoming more known.
we agree exactly with what you're saying. Has anyone successfully done it yet?
It is in the works right now, not that I know of successfully.
And are they trying it in a specific county, or are they trying to do the whole country at one time?
We're trying to do the whole country.
And who's we?
Well, I can't get that name out right now. I'll get it to you
Yeah,
privately.
okay. So this is very encouraging because
yeah.
we've even heard of people going into court and sitting down and they've got the correct flag and the Bible and the Declaration, and they look at the judge and say, I don't know what jurisdiction you're in, Your Honor, but I'm in jurisdiction of land.
Right. Well, now one of the things you got to keep in mind, contempt of court concept. Okay. Now that's valid in law of the land and maritime. You do not want to go in contempt of court, show any dishonor. All right. That's basically all that means. You want to respect whatever court you're in. Doesn't matter if you're under maritime jurisdiction. All you got to do is rebut it, change it, put it under your own. So what you want to do, first thing is, I want to present as evidence and jurisdiction for this court. Court is nothing more than a place where you play a game. You've got basketball court, tennis court, it's all court, that's all it is. Like he said, it's four corners where you're playing a game. Well, the game is played with documents right now. We'll show them your documents. They'll recognize them because they have to. They're under maritime law. Show them your documents. Your documents represent the law of the land and the creation. Like he said, the Bible, the Declaration of Independence, do not ever drag the Constitution in. The first one of the things a lot of people have a tendency to do, not to go off too far on a rabbit trail, but it is pertinent. They call them, everybody says, well, Second Amendment, Second Amendment. It's not Second Amendment. It's Second Article of the Bill of Rights. They never called amendments until the 11th one came in. Then he started calling them all amendments. All right? It's the second article of the Bill of Rights, the right to bear arms. If you say, I want to protect my Second Amendment rights, you just pissed it out the window. See what I'm saying? It's semantics, but it's very, very, very important because it's all done through legalese. It's a language that controls that flag. You need to learn to speak truth. Yes.
What was you said Bible, Declaration of Independence, and what else?
Actually, you did.
I did.
They bring in a little flag, I did. They bring a little flag without the gold fringe on it.
Oh,
Oh, well, I would not bring that. I would bring it, don't tread on me.
bring your own flag with you.
Don't tread on me.
Oh.
I heard that the Bible has to be a non-copyright Bible also, is that right?
No, it's irrelevant.
Is it?
Yep, it's irrelevant.
Don't tread on me flag?
Yes. One of the things that, I mean, I don't want to break anybody's heart here
You're
over
not
some,
breaking mine.
but there's one very important thing, all right? If you're going to use the Bible, you better use the Bible for what it really says, all right?
Amen.
And the very first commandment given, you shall worship no other God before me, all right? Actually, in the Hebrew, when you break it down, it says, you will not put any other God in my face. Don't put him in my face. You better pledge your allegiance to your Creator and not a flag, because you turn around, you pledge allegiance to a flag, and then you turn around and pray to your Creator. I can show you in the scriptures he's not listening to it because you just put another God in his face. See? Don't pledge your allegiance to a flag. Why was that even introduced? After the Civil War, to keep the Union together. One nation, under God, indivisible. That's all Abraham Lincoln garbage. He was one of the worst presidents we ever had. Okay? No. You know, you got the whole country going in up in arms because the guy wouldn't stand up to the Pledge of Allegiance of the national anthem. My goodness, he's probably the only patriot in the whole freaking stadium that actually has the law of God written on his heart. And that was part of the promise that was given to us through our salvation from Yeshua. All right? So, I would suggest you guys pray on this and really get your heart right as to who you're going to worship. You're going to worship that flag, even don't tread on me flag. No, use it as evidence. Evidence, not a form of worship. I hope I didn't offend anybody.
No,
But
you haven't.
You didn't offend me, I agree with what you're saying, I commend you for saying it.
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Because you are totally right.
Hang on one second. To support what he said, many people don't understand that there's actually a preamble to the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
And in the preamble it says, the last paragraph says, articles in addition to an amendment of the Constitution as proposed by Congress. So they are in fact articles.
Yes, the first 10 are articles. Never refer to them as amendments. The moment you do, it's no different than, let's say you get stopped by a cop and he reads you the Miranda rights. All right? You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you don't have one, we'll appoint you one. You understand what I just told you. The moment you say yes, you just pissed it all out the window. Because people do not comprehend the word understand. That means that you're going to stand under them. So if you say you stand under them, well then you have no rights. Because they're functioning under that jurisdiction. See what I'm saying? So you can always say, I do not understand you, but I comprehend every word you're saying.
You have it in?
Yeah, some of the people know who the group I just handed out my card. I help out with Charlotte County COPWATCH in Charlotte County, and like you were saying, that's why I started it 4 years ago. It's a complete money-making scheme, like you said, policing for profit, and I hope this doesn't offend vets here too. But you know what I tell vets a lot lately too is I'm 51. I'm from Michigan. I remember the 80s. I used to mess with a little bit of pot, a little bit of acid, and it wasn't a big deal. You're not going to jail, you know, if it's a small amount. But now it's complete war. You know, not to be mean to the vets. Like I tell the vets, you're not even fighting for freedom anymore. We are not free. Everything is illegal. We are, in my opinion, it's a socialist, fascist, military police state. My sheriff has a freaking tank. MRAP tank. For what? You know what one of his sheriff's deputies said to me? And he laughed about it. He goes, yeah, now if you're a bad guy, we can drive through your house. And he laughed at that. He thinks that's freaking funny. And you know what their war is? For little bitty amounts of, you know, weed or drugs or whatever. Even Nixon's advisor admitted the only reason why they started the war on drugs was to get rid of the people that were fighting against the war back then. That was one of the reasons. That was another reason how to get rid of the hippies, put blacks back in jail. I mean, just, you know, so that, you know, I think being a veteran is great, but man, you're not fighting for freedom anymore.
Right. Well, let me make sure everybody understands. What do you think is the common thread of the 3 countries that are on our enemies list? First of all, who are the countries on our enemies list?
Korea, Iraq,
Iran, and Cuba.
and Cuba.
Are
They don't have federal banks yet.
And Russia and China.
Right.
Russia and China.
And they refuse to accept a Rothschild central bank.
Right.
That's why they're on our
That's
enemies list.
exactly right.
Okay?
There was a whole list the way that went down. Every country that didn't have it, we went to war against.
Exactly.
And forced them into putting in a bank.
Exactly.
That's what all wars have been fought about.
Now, I used to deliver papers as a kid. I'm in 6th grade. I'm living in Stratford, Connecticut. And I would read the front page and a couple pages. And I used to see back, let's see, when was this? In the 60s, early 60s or thereabouts. I used to see that the Latin American countries were all demonstrating against Uncle Sam. And particularly, they were demonstrating against Uncle Sam's imperialism. What did that mean? I was scratching my head. I couldn't figure it out until, you know, many, many years later. Here's the deal. We have something called the CIA. What is the CIA?
Central Intelligence.
It's a private corporation. Who owns that corporation? The bankers. We don't own it.
The Rothschilds own it.
The bankers. So the CIA would pick a target country, and they would go in and they would take down the authentic leader and put in a puppet. Then what would they do? They would flood the market with our corporation's products. Exxon, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Procter & Gamble. They would flood. So this was economic imperialism. We were damaging their economy. We're extracting resources. They actually have a program to extract the best and the brightest and bring them here. So it's a whole big machine that is set up to go out and take over the world. In my lifetime, I have never seen Germany or Japan ever stand up against an American policy. Never. Now, how could it be? Do they love us this much? No. What do you think it is? Well, by the rules of war, the victor gets to decide what the government is going to do, what kind of government and how it's going to run.
The Lieber Code.
Lieber Code. But why do we still have bases in Germany and Japan? They're puppets. Those countries are puppets. They're being run by the banks through the U.S. Army.
Absolutely.
That's why they never fight with us. They're under the control of the same guys we're under control of. So it's just an amazing realization that the bankers have done a fantastic job accumulating power step by step, and it's getting down to the final 4 or 5 countries that refuse. And by the way, the Chinese know and the Russians know that our government has been taken over by corporations. They're fully informed. They know it. The American people don't know it. But those 2 countries know it, and they're, to my way of thinking, they're the best friends we have right now. Absolutely best friends.
Yeah, the people of this country don't even know how we got taken over. We are occupied. We are an occupied nation. You don't believe me? Look at go to your local police sheriff. You got sergeants, captains, lieutenants. Those are military ranks, boys and girls.
Yes, they are.
Military jurisdiction. All right?
And where does the sheriff report to in the chain of command?
Yeah.
You know where?
To the commissioners.
We learned that the sheriff reports into the National Guard.
Well, I don't
Into the
think
military
so.
and the National
Yeah,
Guard.
well, if they do, then I don't see how in the world the Army's not been arresting these flags. because the sheriff even walks around. Look at his uniform. He's got that gold fringe around his stupid flag on his uniform.
There's,
The military is being paid by Rothschilds right now.
right,
So they own our military,
right,
which is not our military.
right.
Well, there are some. Okay, there are some, believe me, I know.
There's two militaries.
Why do you think Obama got rid of 200 generals and admirals last year?
And why is Trump bringing them back?
Yes, exactly.
Question. I just thought of this. Does George Soros work for the banks?
He's not only, no, he's a major investor, he's a supplier.
Or do they work for him?
No.
No, I think he's a puppet too.
He's a banking agent that destroys countries for business.
Right.
right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, he's an investor.
They let him do his thing because it's all for their good.
Yep, he's
They
an
go
investor.
hand in hand together.
So-
It's, you know.
So this brings us back to a couple of key points in the history. One was in 1783, there was something called the Treaty of Paris, 1783. The Treaty of Paris stopped the fighting of the Revolutionary War. So under the rules of war, did we win the Revolutionary War?
No.
Well, no, but who was at that treaty signing? Who was at it? Who was at it? Who was there, present?
They signed it. Who were the people that signed
See?
it?
Yeah.
Who had the influence over that treaty to make it
Bar.
happen? Huh?
The bar.
Not only that, the Vatican bar, the
Right.
Vatican lawyer.
Right.
He's the one that drafted it up.
Right. So, but this treaty identifies two sets of people. And by the way, why do we know we didn't win the Revolutionary War? Because in the rules of war, to win a war, somebody's got to surrender. No one surrendered. It's a negotiated settlement. Okay, it's a negotiated settlement. So what happens? In the Treaty of Paris 1783, two classes of people. The free, sovereign, independent Americans and the inhabitants. Two sets. Who's in the inhabitants?
That's the British.
Well, British. So when the war started, a third of the colonists wanted independence, a third didn't care, and a third were loyal to the king.
Right.
Of the third that wanted independence, only 10% took up arms. That's where we get 3%, the 3%.
Right.
3% beat the best military in the world at the time. So, who's in the inhabitants? Well, the British loyalists, the native Indians, and what I've learned even more recently is, did everybody know that blacks from Africa came here across the ocean before the Europeans got here? Look up the history of the Moors, M-O-O-R-S.
Yeah.
It's really an incredible story.
Yeah.
So we have some good folks up in Jacksonville that have roots from the Moors. And let me tell you what, you go up and talk to these folks and the government is just pounding them. Just banging their society.
Well, history is not taught in schools at all. Matter of fact, you know, our country, our economic system was based on slavery, et cetera, et cetera. The first slave in this country was a white man, not a black
That
man.
is correct. Yep.
Okay? We had 7 black presidents before Obama.
That's right.
All right? How many presidents did we have before George Washington? We didn't just pop up, all right, when the Constitution was enacted and ratified and passed and George Washington was our first president. That is BS. We've been around since 1500s. All right? But nobody's ever taught any of this history.
Okay, so this brings us to a very important point for the vets in the audience here. Anybody know a guy named John Dollinger?
He's,
John Dollinger? Does that ring a bell? He is a vice president of the American Legion Florida Division. And I met him face to face. And he told me that in Florida we have about 300,000 retired vets. Of that, about 100,000 are American Legion members. And 5,000 of the 300,000, 5,000 vets are in prison. Of the 5,000, our estimates are 4,000 vets are in prison unconstitutionally and unlawfully.
95% of the prison population is there unconstitutional.
I agree.
Why is this going on? Well, there's 2 or 3 logical reasons. One is when you swear an oath as a veteran, when do you get relieved of that oath?
Never.
When you die. That's it. Okay? So who, if you're trying to move this country from a Republican form of government over to a socialist communist form of government, who's your biggest threat? The retired vets. They still have their oath to the Constitution. So if you can take away their weapons and throw them in jail, you're making your problem a lot easier to solve. So when we're talking tonight, what we're proposing is a program that we do some more research, because the plan, we don't have a plan yet, but I want to talk about it in rough conceptual form, and if you guys agree, then we got some work to do to figure out a plan. But in essence, 4,000 vets are rotting their life away unconstitutionally and unlawfully in prisons in Florida. Okay? Is that worth doing something about? You think we should take up the cause? I do. Right? So at the end of the day, there's a group out in Colorado, a fellow by the name of Steve Curry, who wrote most of this paper. He, in the draft form, he sent it to me and asked me to help edit it, which I did do. But the whole idea is exactly what this gentleman was saying: arrest this flag. The idea is that we go to the official color guard of each county and we educate them on the history of the flag and one very, very important executive order. In 1959, you'll see number 10 on your sheet, President of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Executive Order number 10834, signed into law August 21st, 1959. And Ike did us a big favor then, because he defines the flag on the event that caused this, was Hawaii coming into the Union. And he defined the flag, and the flag does not include the gold fringe except for an indoor military court-martial. That's the only time you can have the gold fringe. So we plan to educate in each county, one county at a time. June 14th is Flag Day. What's that, 3 months roughly? We'd like to get the color guard organized and educated and cause them to understand that flag's got to be replaced. If we're successful, then the judge has one of two choices. He or she must convert the court to a common law court of record.
Or leave it.
Or leave.
Vacate.
That's
He'll
it.
vacate, he'll have to.
That's it. And if he decides to stay and run it as court of common law,
He can't if he's a bar member.
number one, he can't if he's bar member. Number two, he could resign his bar.
That's right.
And number two, he has no decision-making power.
That's right.
Article 3, Section 2, Clause 3 of this Constitution says the trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be by jury. No judge. No judge. Now why? Because the founders knew that the number one way the king delivered tyranny into society was through judges.
Amen.
That's the number one way the king got his way. So our founders were sick and tired of this tyranny. And they said, in criminal trials, there is zero role for a judge. It is trial by jury. You first must be indicted or presented by a group of 25, which is the grand jury. Otherwise, you cannot be held to account. If the 25 people do not think the evidence is strong enough to cause a trial, you can't even be tried. Now, these 4,000 vets that are in jail, they never got that protection. That's the Fifth Amendment. And they never got that. Then if there is a trial, then you're supposed to have 12 peers. What's a peer? A peer is to know your character. They are to know you well enough to see whether that action is in your character or out of your character. So that when they judge the evidence and they know your character, they can make a judicial decision. Yeah.
One more thing on the veterans thing. You said that we did some research on it a while back and gave it to this class. The only time a veteran can lose is veteran benefits by half. The only time they can lose, couldn't find anything else, is if he sits in jail for more than 60 days.
60 days?
And why is that?
Wow.
You gotta ask yourself, why is that? See, that's part of what you just said. That's how they're gonna get rid of their benefits now. Nobody
Wow.
can take some of the money and put it forth to going against it.
I didn't know that.
It does exist.
Now, there's a very important point to what Bill was talking about jurisdiction. Remember, I said in the Treaty of Paris, there's the free, sovereign, independent Americans and the inhabitants. Which one are you folks?
I'm a free sovereign independent American because I filed my paperwork for it. I made that claim.
Okay,
So far.
did everyone hear that? So what happens is, we are now looking at a situation where they did a pincer movement on us. They created these corporations and came into the government whereby initially when you elected a public official, he or she is supposed to take the office in the public trust that the founders created. Instead, they created a corporation, and the person, when he wins his election, now takes an office inside a corporation. Okay, that's number one. Number two, they took over the public education system and mind conditioned us so that by the time you're in second grade, the teacher asks you, are you a U.S. citizen? Well, I'll say, yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen.
Did you see where the the Department of Education is going to be abolished?
I hope so, sir.
Yes, sir. It was passed 2 days ago. It's going to take effect July 1, 18.
Amen.
Does that go back to the states?
Yes, sir.
So let's.
That's why they didn't want her to be the leader of the Department of Education. They knew she was going to do that.
DeVos?
Yeah.
DeVos, yep.
DeVos, yeah. She went in there right away and started doing it all. And they got Congress to pass it.
So what's the difference? Think about this at the time of the founding of the country. What is the geographic definition of the United States?
There isn't one.
Well, there is.
Only if you're going to put an ink after it, then it's 10 square miles.
10 square miles.
There you go.
Put a what after it?
Ink. Incorporation.
Yeah, 10 square miles. So here's the point. During the Revolutionary War, 13 colonies fought, declared their independence, fought, and negotiated a settlement and did the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. In international law, every one of the 13 colonies became an independent nation in international law. Every one of them. Now, they then join together and take some of their sovereignty and create what they called at the time the general government. We now call it the federal government, but the general government. So there's we the people, we created our states, the states created the general government. Okay, that's the system the founders gave us. In other words, the counties are to run the state, and the state is to run the federal government. But we all know they corporatized it and flipped it over. But at the time Washington was elected president, at that time, what was the United States? It's 10 square miles of D.C. and the territories. So if you raise your hand and you claim to be a U.S. citizen, what are you claiming to be? You're claiming to be a citizen of the D.C. Municipal Corporation.
And if you're not in the territories, you committed fraud. Sorry.
You're ahead of me.
Sorry.
So, do you want to be a citizen of a D.C. Municipal Corporation? Why? What does it mean? It means that you have changed your status from being a free, sovereign, independent American with all of your rights. You put your rights down, and in return, you take on the privileges at the will of Congress. Yes?
You will not find the word citizen in any of the founding documents. Okay? Citizen comes from term civitas, which means subject to the Senate, to Roman law, civil law. If you read the arguments of the founders when they were framing the Constitution, they did not want civil law in this country in any way, shape, or form. That brings in administrative law. Why do you think you get stopped? You get a civil citation, a ticket. You know what that is? It's nothing more than a writ of attainder, or writ of attainder was used for treason being punished for treason without representation of trial. But there's another one that falls just short of death penalty of treason. It's called pains of penalties. It's equivalent to a writ of attainder. And Congress says, right there in one of the articles, I can't remember exactly what it is, right at the beginning.
I think it's Article
No
1,
bill of attainder
Section 10.
shall be written. Congress shall make no bills of attainder. But nobody knows what a bill of attainder is. One of the things that I've always done, anytime anybody ever been getting gas somewhere and a squad car pulls up and he's getting gas too, happens to me all the time. Every time I have an opportunity, I will talk to any law enforcement. And I will say, I want to establish a contract with them right away. Can I ask you a question? Yes. Good. I got him in a contract. Do you know what, or have you ever heard of a bill of attainder? Bill of attention. They don't even know what I'm talking about. Right? I said, you know, every time you write a ticket to somebody without them committing a crime, you know you've just committed a felony?
I like
You broke a federal law. It's in the Constitution. Read it. Did you not take an oath to uphold and defend that Constitution? I know I did as a veteran. All right? And I had issues about that for over 40 years, boys and girls. All right? But one thing that me and my son have in common, he's a veteran too. Tried not to get him to go in. He didn't understand why I didn't want him to go in. But one of the things that I shared with him is that you and I have something in common. We both took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. Uphold that Constitution every chance you get. If you do that, you will be doing more of the will of God by accident than any of these so-called Christians can do on purpose. They're out here supporting the troops and all that stuff. My goodness, if a troop actually read his manual, if a soldier actually knew what was going on and who he was fighting for, he'd put his weapons down and tell them to come on home. You want to end the wars? Give them the truth.
Okay, so let me bring the conversation back to the...
Sorry.
I appreciate that. But, so, remember now, United States is the 10 square miles in the territories. So when you raise your hand, you volunteer to become a U.S. citizen, you're becoming a subject, citizen means subject of the D.C. Municipal Corporation. How is it that, and your real status is you are a Floridian if you're born in Florida. That's your nationality, forever. Okay? If you're born in Rhode Island, you're a Rhode Islander. Okay? Forever. You can't change it. That's your nationality. Because all of these states are independent nations. Just one second. Let me finish.
Okay.
So, what happens now if I'm a Rhode Islander, which I am, and I raise my hand and I volunteer to become a U.S. citizen? I'm claiming a status that is not my status. Because how can you become a U.S. citizen? There's only two methods. You've got to be born in D.C. or the territories, or you've got to become naturalized. Did anyone here get born in D.C. or the territories? Did you go through naturalization? No. So you're claiming, by saying, yes, I'm a U.S. citizen, you're claiming a status that is untrue. What is that? That's called perjury, and that's why the government, through the bar, is at war with its own people. Mm-hmm. That's how they justify all of the damage they're doing to the society. Because we, in their game of wordmanship and civil law, we have claimed a false status. So we have something called the Affidavit of the Right of Suffrage. In this affidavit, you declare that you are not a U.S. citizen, you are a free, sovereign, independent American. You rescind all your voter registration cards. Now, some people get very concerned about that. What about that? I can't vote. No, you can vote. You can't register to vote. But you can vote. Voting is a right. It's called the right of suffrage, and they cannot penalize you. They cannot take that right away, or they're committing very serious crimes. 10 years in jail, $250,000 fine. So you can't take that right away. And we proved this past November up in Berrien County, when 3 or 4 people did the right of suffrage, went to vote. The gal at the polling booth says, well, Mr. Smith, are you registered to vote? He said, no. Well, Mr. Smith, do you have a driver's license? No. Well, then I'm afraid you can't vote. And he had a big grin on his face. He says, I really don't think you want to say that, because here's the penalty, $250,000 fine and 10 years in prison if you stop me from voting. She said, hold on, let me call my boss. She called the supervisor of elections in Marion County, and he said, let him vote.
Does that fall under the misprision felony?
It is a misprision
Yes,
felony, too.
Yep.
So, bottom line is, there's a combination of nasty things, tricks that have been played on us, mind games. We fell for the idea that we're U.S. citizens. I certainly did. Okay? In October, I put in my right of suffrage, and you file it with your supervisor of elections, you file it with your Secretary of State, and 30 days later, you make sure your name is not on the voter registration list. Why is it? They use it as a presumption that when you register to vote in their corporate elections, you are a subject. You're agreeing to every bad thing they're doing. Because you're volunteering to vote for it. So it's really a nasty game. It's unbelievably fraud. It's totally corrupt. But that's the reality, ultimately, that we face. So the idea would be that we would take this home and read it and study it, but fundamentally we would rely on the executive order that Eisenhower signed, as well as a bunch of other laws, and we would go to the color guard, educate them about the history of the flag, what's the real flag, and where's that book? Okay, you took the book back?
Bob's got it.
Okay, that flag is clearly, this flag does not, no, not that book, sorry, the other one, the booklet. It is not owned by a country, and it does not represent a constitution. We all think it does. Yeah, that's it. So we've been brainwashed, and the flag on the cap is one civil flag of peace, and the suggestion that the "Don't Tread on Me," can you refer me to a point where I can validate that's?
I will.
Great.
I did
Appreciate
the research a long time ago. I don't know if I have my notes.
I love that.
I'll find it, yeah.
Don't tread on me. And who's the "Don't Tread on Me" state? Who's got that on their license plate? Who? New Hampshire.
Look on the back, it'll tell you. Look on the next page. It
No,
tells you what all those flags are.
Right. It's New Hampshire. Okay.
Yeah, they live
And it's called what? What's the name of the flag?
Rattlesnake flag.
Nope.
No?
Nope. Anybody else? The Gadsden flag.
That's right.
Okay. And would you know it? My youngest grandson's name is
Yes.
Gadsden. What a patriotic family.
So have you exited the system?
I am, yeah.
Fully?
Well, I've got some more to do. And this is important because as the sovereign, we the people are the free, sovereign, independent Americans. We can put down our right and contract anytime we want to. And when we decide we're done with that contract, we can exit the contract. No one can, we have that ability.
Roger,
Yeah.
can we also say, okay, I contract to do this, but I do not accept any penalties that you're putting on that contract by your de facto statutes?
You
or
waive all
regulations?
benefits.
Right. So, I'll be
Yeah, that's the
example.
UCC
The
1307.
next step that I have to go through.
308?
Actually, it's 2308. It used to be 1307. Yeah.
The next step I have to go through is I must file a paper with the Social Security Administration. I paid into Social Security all my life. I'm not going to give up those benefits because they were purchased. They're not an entitlement. I paid for them, okay? But when you apply for a Social Security number and you sign that application, unknowingly you're giving them the power of attorney. So you must send a letter in that rescinds your power of attorney. I haven't done that yet.
I've done it. I've got the letter too.
Okay. So we need to bring all these steps together and hand out forms and make it simple. But fundamentally, June 14th isn't that far away. I'd like to just get a sense of the folks here. How many people, show of hands, how many people think it'd be worth working with a color guard to remove the flag, thereby going back to common law in the courts? Okay, pretty good. Great.
Let me ask you this, Arthur, what do you think about having a meeting with the veterans about this?
I don't mean to be nasty or hateful or anything. From free and over 21, you can do anything you want.
When do you guys?
I don't think it's going to fly with our color guard.
Okay.
I don't think they'll understand it.
So after they're educated about time.
So my
Look
plan
pretty.
is to
I've been
call
fighting
up,
for 7 years.
my plan is to call up Mr. Dollinger, who's finance guy at the headquarters of American Legion, go meet with him again and attempt to ask about these 4,000 vets that are in prison. What about if we could start a program to help get them out? And what we would need to do is help study the situation, make sure that they didn't commit a violent crime and they didn't injure somebody's property. If they did, then that's a crime under common law. But if it was some other infraction of some statute, then they...
Providing there was evidence. Most people are there because of confession, forced confession.
Forced confession, but
Yeah.
it's
It could be still considered a criminal offense, but they're in there because of forced confession. There was never ever any evidence. I've administered to 2 or 3 guys on death row. They're in there with no evidence, all circumstantial.
Absolutely.
Well, that's
Yes.
what we gotta work on getting out.
Well, yeah, that should make it easier to get them out.
You should be, but I've been fighting it for over 10 years and I can't get him out. I can't get anybody to listen.
Well, the big deal is if we can successfully arrest the flag, the judges go, then we're back to common law, and common law, the grand jury can set up a committee and say you need to review everybody's records, and anybody that committed a common law crime, which is if I injure you or damage your property, I committed a crime, I've got to restore you. How can I restore you if I'm in prison?
Right.
Can't restore you. Now this whole thing is a huge money-making machine. It is a huge money-making machine. The private prisons, the courts, roughly, the guys in Colorado have gotten some data points that roughly, of all of the fines and penalties, the judges collect about 30% in their pocket. In their retirement. It's called the Chris account, and it's administered by the Federal Reserve Bank in Dallas. It's a very ugly system. Shame on us. We let it slowly but surely grow up, and we didn't wake up in time, and now it's pretty...
I was thinking about starting up a petition to dissolve the Federal Reserve and sending that to Chuck directly. Do you think that might do anything? Is it worthwhile?
I don't think so.
Listen to it?
Here's our strategy. We've got to get one county at a time straightened out. When we get the counties, enough counties straightened out, we can straighten out the state. Get enough states straightened out, we can straighten out DC and the Federal Reserve. But unless we build that foundation at a county by county level. Now, hopefully everybody remembers, although we took some time off, that the way we're aiming to solve the problem in the county, Marion County is our lead county. We worked for about 5 or 6 months on a draft of a constitution for a county. Why is this important? Well, we need each county to do an assembly. We, the people, an assembly meeting. In the meeting, you elect the chairman of the assembly, the vice chair, the secretary, the treasurer, sergeant at arms. Now, this is we, the people, an assembly. This is how self-government works. We used to always do it, and then slowly but surely we let the professional politicians in, and they took over. I can guarantee you, for example, I was always intrigued, how did New Hampshire exist as a state with 0 income tax and 0 sales tax? How did it? I figured their roads must be full of holes. Best roads in New England. Thick pavement, beautiful roads. I figured their schools must be rotten schools. Their high school graduates are in the top 10 states consistently every year. What's the magic? How do they do it? Well, every 2 years, they hold an election. And they elect you and you and you and me to go to the State House, do whatever business needs to be done, and then go back to our jobs. That's what the founders designed. No one's sitting around professionally thinking of new ways to take away your freedom and your money. Right? It's citizen self-government by the people. And when you're in that office, you are a citizen. When you're out, you're a freeman. And by the way, the Defense Department used to automatically correct a serviceman's record. Because you leave being a freeman, you sign up for military service, and then when you finish your tour of duty, your status was automatically corrected to be a freeman. No longer. Because when you sign that contract, now you're a U.S. citizen, and they don't automatically correct your status. You have to send a letter to the Defense Department to correct your status. Yes.
You're talking about these 5 men go up to the State House and do their business and then go back to work. Where did the money come from to fix these roads?
They have taxes on hotel rooms. They have liquor taxes and liquor stores, state liquor stores. They do a couple other things like that.
Well, that sounds like just about every state, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So where's the magic?
The real magic is that the people are spending their own money, and they don't, because they're making the spending decisions, they don't let these lobbyists come in and bribe them to do crazy stuff with the money.
How far back do you think that went when the DOD does not cancel it?
I think Anna told me it was around 56.
56.
I think so. Not sure.
When he started changing, talking about the military,
Yeah.
when they changed the your serial number to the Social Security number. Your serial numbers soldier serial numbers used to be random. Now they're by your Social Security.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
1968.
Yes.
Do we know anything about what Donald
That's
Trump
been
had
for a long time.
planned to help us?
Yes, let's talk about that.
What was that question? Sorry.
His question was, do we know anything about what Donald Trump plans to do to help us? How many people watched Donald Trump's inauguration speech? Did you notice about 7 to 10 minutes into the speech, a whole bunch of military guys came up behind him and filled the whole television screen? Anybody see that?
Yep.
Do you know on some videos that I watched after we talked about it, some videos never showed that part of the inauguration.
They pulled it out?
They pulled it out. I found a couple still online that still
So
have it.
did you notice that? Some of you vets. And in particular, they were military of different branches of the military. All kinds of different. I'm sitting there watching this real time thinking, oh shit, they're not even going to let him put a foot in office. They're going to arrest the guy. No. Guess what that was? Anybody?
Giving the government back to the people.
Back to the people.
That's right.
The military stood there and then turned around and dispersed into the crowd. That was the signal that the military is back to support the people. They did the reverse when FDR declared bankruptcy. He was in the middle of declaring bankruptcy and the military came up behind him and stood there that we're supporting this. And now they did the reverse. So it didn't take long until February 9th, Mr. Trump signed an executive order. And this executive order was initially signed by Bush #2, then it was modified and enhanced a little bit and signed by Obama, and now it's been modified and enhanced a little bit and signed by Mr. Trump. And what it is an executive order that mentions a multi-department task force against transnational criminal networks. Transnational criminal networks. Now what the heck are we talking about? Well, people can think about drug cartels in Mexico coming in and taking over the government in different counties or states. But don't forget again, every state is a nation. So a transnational criminal network could be any network that operates across state lines. Okay? So, when you read the words of this transnational criminal network, guess what organization fits these words perfectly?
The bar.
The bar. The bar fits the words perfectly.
Capone was actually arrested on that. That's how they finally got him.
Tax evasion.
No, it wasn't tax evasion. It was doing business across the state line.
State line.
That's right. Another thing that Trump has done too is he put the picture of Andrew Jackson back in the Oval Office. Andrew Jackson brought down the banking system.
He did.
And that's Trump showing, I'm going to do this again. So he's giving us kind of hints if we know what to look for.
So, as a result of this executive order, they now have what's called a working group on threat assessments for transnational networks, transnational criminal networks, and what they're doing is soliciting input from the people to help identify these networks. Where are they operating? So one approach is that we're investigating is we have a statewide grand jury working in Florida. We have plenty of evidence of the criminality that's going on in the courts, and we could combine those two things and have the grand jury present to this working group and see if we can't get some support and help in Florida to deal with some of the criminality that's going on. That is a possibility. I'm not going to tell you that we have a defined plan yet to execute. We don't. So we're just exploring how to move forward. In essence, there's a clear civil war going on inside the government now. People have characterized it 2 or 3 different ways. One way they've characterized it is the bankers and the people in government who have sold out to the bankers. So even in the Pentagon, there are the black hats and the white hats. The black hats have sold out to the bankers. The white hats believe in the Constitution and their oath to the Constitution. And they're fighting. But even in the State Department and other departments, there's what's called now, people are calling it in the news, the deep state is trying to take Trump down. Now why is it? Well, one of the explanations I heard that made a lot of sense is that there's something called the American Empire. And remember I talked about the Latin American countries where we depose the leader and come in and basically take over their economy. Well, there are a bunch of people that still think on this enemies list, we got to go to war with Iran, we got to go to war with Russia, and we got to keep this thing rolling. There's a whole other segment that says, no, we've way overextended ourselves. We've got to withdraw, let these countries do their own thing, get our bases back out of these countries, come home and deal with our domestic issues and become a better neighbor. Because we've already got, I forgot what the number is, but we invaded Iraq and I think we killed 2 million people.
At least.
Right? Imagine killing 2 million people today. And people think that we have a Department of Defense. When was the last time this country was attacked that we used our defense? Well, when we needed it in 9/11, where were they? They were called off the job. They wanted to
So
go.
you actually think we were attacked, huh?
No, we were attacked.
That's a whole can of worms there, huh?
No,
We didn't know we were attacked.
Right? The damage was done.
But attacked by who? Who were attacked
That's
within?
the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
From within.
I don't think, anybody want to have a discussion about 9/11?
I'd like to go back to the registry, if you don't mind.
The what?
Voter registry.
I can't hear you, sir.
Voter
Yeah,
registry.
go ahead.
Yeah. When I went down to withdraw my voter registry, I told the lady, I'm going to try and slip in a big hunk of meat for anybody who really wants to chew on something. I told her, I says, I need to withdraw myself from voter registry. And she says, what for? I said, well, do I need a reason? She said, nah, not really, but I'd like to know. I said, so I don't potentially get prosecuted for perjury. She says, what do you mean? I says, well, I'm not a U.S. citizen. She says, well, where were you born? I says, where I was born has nothing to do with my citizenship. It's how I was born. Okay? Now, some of you may or may not have gotten that. All right? But it's very important as to how you were born. It didn't make any sense to me until I was, quote, as Christians call it born again. No, I'm begotten of my Father. Okay? My citizenship, when I told her, I'm the Israeli, I am Israel. Read your scriptures, boys and girls. You're not a citizen of the United States. You're not an American. You are either Israel or you're not. Period. This battle that we're fighting is not flesh and blood. Okay, we don't need presidents. We've got a king. We don't need some mediator between us like a lawyer. We've got one. It's Yeshua. All right? Learn that. That's what Dad's waiting for. Everybody wants divine intervention. It says right there, read the book. He's waiting for his sons of Elohim, his sons of God. He's waiting for them to rise up. And then everything's going to change.
We're working on it.
So at the end of the day, think about one question, and I don't need a detailed answer, but think in your own brain, what's the minimum government we need? What's the purpose of government, and what's the minimum government we need? What did Jefferson say the purpose of government was? Protect our rights. Declaration of Independence, protect our rights. So what is the minimum size government you need? Seems to me that every county would need a grand jury, a petite jury, a sheriff, and that's it.
Assembly.
And that's assembly, sorry. But the assembly is the people, that's not the government. But the assembly would be the people coming together, take a decision, are we going to build a new road, are we going to build a new high school, what are we going to do? And then we go home. But the government is left standing, and what's the minimum government we need? Well, did you know that when they instituted public schools, the farmers knew this day was coming when we would be brainwashed. We wouldn't understand our Constitution. We wouldn't understand the founding, the Declaration. They had to call out the army to force the kids into public schools.
That's right.
Okay? Why? Because we had from 1789, when we did the Constitution, to about 1840, we went zooming by every other country on the face of the globe. And the farmers knew how to educate. And they'd get together and have a one-room schoolhouse. Every kid would go in there, they'd read, they'd do math, they'd learn how to critical think. In 1830, Alexis de Tocqueville came from France as a nobleman to study how did this country go roaring past all the other countries. Was it our natural resources? Was it our harbors? What was it? And what he found was that if you went walking down the street and you infringed on a man's rights, you better get ready to get punched in the face. Because everybody knew their rights and would not let any infringement to happen. And you could ask a 6th grade school kid a question about the Constitution, and if he and she couldn't answer it, they would point to you where the answer was, and they'd read it to you. Okay? That's how educated we were about the founding system that the founders gave us, and how we defended. This is just a piece of paper, it's a document. Every person in our society defended it, and understood it, and held people accountable to it. And that's why they got us to go way off course, by taking it. They took this out of the education process. They took it out of law schools. You go talk to an attorney and ask him what Article 3, Section 2, Clause 3 says. Ask them what the first article is about, the second article, the third article. They don't know. They have no clue. And they're putting us in jail. Okay? So fundamentally, we have the tools the founders gave us. They suspected this day would come. We've got to educate folks, color guards, everything else, and we've got to reestablish government centered under the Constitution. That's all. It's not that we're anti-government. We want government to be effective at its purpose, which is to protect our rights. That's it, yeah.
Like you said, as an example, even Charlotte County, there's some Charlotte County people here, I know that guy is right there. The deep state is even there. Do you know who the biggest employer is in Charlotte County? Charlotte County. The sheriff, the jail, the government is huge, the school. So there again, we literally have the deep state here. How do you defeat it? Bob knows this is true too. He's used to working in government here. I talk to so many people that literally talk about it's like their own like gang. It's like, you know, you're not one of us and you wouldn't understand, and that's why we do what we do. And I'm like freaking out, going, what the fuck is this, man? I go, but they literally have, Bob knows, they've taken over. I mean, it is.
Here's the answer to your question.
Yes.
Here's the answer.
Yep.
Jefferson said, government is not by the majority, it is by the majority that participates. So all it takes is a small group of patriots in Charlotte County. And they post a notice in the paper and on Facebook and everything else. We the people will meet in assembly 30 days hence in this location. The people meet, they elect the people to run the assembly, and they take the draft constitution for the county, debate it, amend it, ratify it. It's going to take multiple meetings over a period of weeks or months. And then that becomes the voice of the people to the public servants. If they don't comply, you take the evidence of non-compliance to the people's grand jury, and they can indict and present against the non-compliance.
Right.
But remember this, the offices in the public trust are still there. They're vacant. We're not occupying them. So the assembly can elect a treasurer. So I'll give you what we're planning to do in Marion County. When you elect a treasurer, right now, when you send your tax money into the county, you think it's going into the public treasury, right? That's what you normally think. Guess what? It's not going into the public treasury. It's going into a corporate treasury. When you convert public funds into corporate treasury funds, that's a federal crime called conversion. That's a felony. Okay, so one of the first things that the assembly does is elect a treasurer and authorize their treasurer to open up new accounts in the public treasury, and the assembly puts out a public announcement that from this day hence, pick a time, taxes go into the public treasury, not the corporate treasury. And you'll have evidence. You can just go to Manta and show them the evidence that it's a private corporation. It's not the government.
Why don't you tell them how many banks they're dealing with in Marion County?
I'm sorry, go
How
ahead.
many banks they're dealing with in Marion County?
Okay. I personally was part of this. We went into to the clerk of the court, who in Florida is the chief financial officer of the county. And we sat across from the clerk of the court, chief financial officer, and his first assistant is there. And we said, we want to see the cash coming into the county and all of the cash going out of the county. We want to see it. And we want to see the accounts that it's going through. And he hemmed and hawed and hemmed and hawed, and then he said, well, we have over 100 different accounts. And guess what? He doesn't control the sheriff's budget. He doesn't control the school board's budget. This is just the Board of County Commissioners, about half the money. So they have committed such egregious set of financial stuff that you can't figure out what's going on. You have to just shut it down. But in shutting it down, you've got to watch for something called the CAFR account. Comprehensive Annual Financial Report account. Grab the one for Charlotte County, look up the investment highlights, and they'll talk about their investment policy. There's two reports, by the way. One of them is a shiny 40 or 50 page color brochure that's called the Popular Report, and the other one is the actual CAFR report. It's a couple hundred pages of just black print. Get the Popular Report, look for the investment policy place. It says what our investment policy, then it shows you how much investments they have of your funds for the county. For Manatee County, whose budget each year that the Board of County Commissioners spend is about $550 million, $600 million. What do you think they have in the investment accounts? 700 million bucks. 700 million bucks. So you could cut the budget in half for all the wasteful spending, and then you could set up a program over 10 years to drain those accounts, and you could probably cut everybody's tax bill by at least 50%. And remember that the county has two types of revenue. They have governmental revenues, and they have what's called enterprise revenues. What are enterprise revenues? Anybody? Does your county sell any water? Does your county do any trash business? Does your county run an airport? Does your county, any business? That's enterprise revenues. That's not government, right? That should be cut away and let the free market take care of it, right? So fundamentally, we could easily, lawfully bring the people together. It doesn't have to be a big group. The first assembly in Marion County was held 3 weeks ago on a Saturday. The next one is April 15th. The first one, about 25 people showed up. The next one will probably get more like 40 or 50 people. And it'll grow. People are learning. We're putting out a newspaper in Marion County to educate folks. We're putting them in the restaurants and the barber shops and the bus stops. Yeah.
The important thing that you mentioned about that assembly is it's controlled by the people that show up. Those people that don't show up accept what happens in the assembly. If they don't accept what happens in the assembly, then it's up to them to show up and say something about it.
And that's why it's important to wake up the patriots first. Get your patriots to do the assembly, and we can straighten out the situation.
Well, that's so. I'm new to this in my only second meeting, and I like what you guys are saying. That's why I'm here. I'm recording it again. I'll put it on the big YouTube. My YouTube channel is at 52 million views, so I got a lot of people that watch a lot of stuff that I do. But like I said again, you know, I mean, this monster is so out of control. I still can't comprehend how they're just going to let it go. Because even they're going to, I hate to keep mentioning Bob, but he lives in Charlotte County. He knows how bad it is. That sheriff, I don't know if you guys consider yourself sovereign citizens or whatever, but from what I've known and read, and he's done freaking videos on this stuff, he hates anything like this. He hates sovereign citizens. He hates anybody that's trying to take this power away. So how do we beat that? I mean, this guy is, Bob knows, is completely unfrickin' constitutional.
No, I've met this guy 2 or 3 times, right?
Oh man, he's Sheriff Bill Prummell is out of control.
Face to face.
Out of control, man.
And educated him on the common law and the common law grand jury.
And how did it go?
He understands that.
No, he doesn't. He comprehends it.
Yeah,
Last thing he does is understand it.
Well, comprehending and doing something about it is two different things.
Exactly.
Right.
So let me give you an example. John Saunders, who's not here, who hurt his ankle, but he's in Sarasota County. He and I and another guy went in to see Tom Knight, Sheriff of Sarasota County.
Yep.
And we've met with him 3 times face to face so far. And we educated him about the common law grand jury, etc. And in the last meeting, face to face, he said, look, I am an elected sheriff. I cannot get at the front of this parade and lead this effort. But I'll tell you what I'll do.
Working.
If you guys get people interested and anyone calls, the press calls or anything else, I will support you. I will tell them that everything you're doing is lawful. Now, Prummell got educated by Tom Knight. He used to work for Tom Knight. So we could call Tom Knight up and say, hey, could you have a conversation with Prummell about common law grand juries, assemblies, etc.
Right.
So there's ways that we can navigate this. But look around Charlotte County and look for the people who are already awake and they're off the couch. They're either fighting against Common Core in the school curriculum.
True.
They're fighting for veterans. They're fighting for property rights.
True.
Homeschooling, whatever it is, right? And you bring those folks together. You meet with the leaders. You bring them together. The Libertarian Party, they've been screwed real bad because in Federalist 53, paper 53, Madison clearly states, we delegated no authority to any branch of government to organize, run, or count the results of elections. Government is verboten, cannot do it. It is a reserved right of the people. Why aren't we running our own elections? Shame on us. We fell asleep. They took over. Okay? So then what you do, though, when you have your first assembly, you might decide that there's a hot issue, like maybe it's Common Core. In Manatee County, there's a very active group still fighting against Common Core in the school curriculum. In Manatee County. So you gotta read the market, see where the energy is. People are awake, and then you teach them how this constitution for the county solves their problem. Then you go to the next group. This thing can solve your problem. I'll show you how. Boom, boom, boom. And bingo, you got enough people.
I have an idea to throw out there. I've been doing COPWATCH now for 4 years. Like I said, I experienced the corruption. That's why I started the group. There's COPWATCH groups all over the country. In fact, all over the world now, because people are sick of the tyranny. I had one idea. I don't have the funds to do it, but like you said, Charlotte County and Punta Gorda, it's really, really hard to find people like that because we have so many retired government, military. It's just like, wow, they're all, like you said, literally brainwashed into big government's good and great. I mean, my biggest COPWATCH meeting was like, I think 8, 9 people, and I've been doing it for 4 years. So I had an idea, if we could get funds together, like you said, how do we get more people? Here's an idea. Through FOIA requests, you can get all tickets rolled for a week. You can get all the arrests for a week. So on those documents, you have their addresses. My idea is to send postcards. Like you said, so many people have no clue that I'm here, no clue that you're here. Maybe to get more people is the code enforcement issues are ridiculous in Charlotte County. He'll tell you that they have a kangaroo court that'll make you sick.
Andrew, one of the reasons why I invited you here tonight,
right,
get you to understand this, to see if
yep,
you would join our assembly. You and Harry. And we'll get the 5 of us together. We've got at least 5 people in Charlotte County. We could
right,
call one, get it together, and then later on down the line we will vote them in officially and do it properly. Now this book right here is everything you need to know about putting an assembly together. This has gone out to at least 7, 8 different counties
right,
throughout Florida so far.
Right.
And I don't know how many more Roger moved on to other different counties, so it's out there.
Right.
All this information is from all of us putting it all together for the last, what, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, let me tell you one other thing that's going on, though, folks, here in Florida. Every 20 years, there's something called the Constitutional Revision Commission.
Mm-hmm. Mark Schmittner was there.
You saw it.
That's right.
Okay.
Wasn't that good?
It was awesome.
So what we've got is 37 political appointees doing a completely unlawful, unconstitutional process. Why? How can you tell if the Constitution is a valid Constitution or not? How can you tell? It must be either written directly by the people or by the people's representatives that were elected for that purpose. It cannot be written by the bar, which every Florida Constitution has been written by. Bar members came in from Alabama and Georgia and wrote the first one in 1838, and pretty much it's been the same thing, or the legislature ever since. Florida has never, in our history, had a valid constitution by the people. Never had one. So now they've got this traveling roadshow.
What? The 1845 one is missing.
It's missing, right. So they have this traveling roadshow, and we need volunteers to go to every meeting and present to them the facts. We did this one time, there's a YouTube video, we did it Wednesday night. Mark Schmitter did a 2.5-minute presentation, and he said, this is your notice of fraud for the lack of delegated authority.
Did you see it?
And in other words, he read the statement that told all 37, well, I think there's about 25 there, that they're all acting criminally. They are outlaws right now.
Impersonators.
Impersonating public officials. So we have this opportunity that's over the next 6 to 8 months to get on this wave and help educate more public. When Mark finished his speaking, there was a lot of yes and people clapping. There's energy there. People want to fix this. They want to fix the lawlessness. In addition, leading up to the first meeting, the League of Women Voters, who's nonpartisan, not party related, they're very upset about it too because of the process. These are all political nominees. That means donors or friends of politicians or bar members, and there's no people there. It's supposed to be written by the people. So it's invalid right from the get-go.
Can you give me some examples, statistics of what we hear about working?
I don't understand your question.
In other words, we want to replace. what's there, corporate? Can you give me some statistics about where that has happened, or it is happening?
We have 3,140 counties in the country, roughly.
Florida.
I know. I'm just saying, there's about 3 or 4 counties, I have been told, that have not been corporatized. The rest are all corporations.
Is Lamar one of them?
I think Lamar County, Georgia is one of them.
One in Arizona, I
And some of them operate both. In Michigan, they've got 10 counties that are operating the corporate and the public trust private side. Yes.
Since this corporation was born of violence, and they inflict violence in other countries, what just happened to start coming after us?
That could happen at any time. When I decided to start down this path 3.5, 4 years ago, I looked at the situation we're in as a business guy, and I said, wait a minute, we have a contract, the government's over here doing all kinds of stuff that's way out of bounds. This is a contract enforcement problem by its nature, right? And they want us to think that if we don't like what they're doing, just vote them out. But the founders gave us 2 other methods to correct it that are much more powerful than voting. He gave us the grand jury. Grand jury has three purposes. Protect innocent people from unjust charges from those in power. Make sure that the right people are standing trial for corruption and guilt, and damage. And then the grand jury has the ability to go in and audit every single branch of government to root out corruption. In 1901, in Manatee County newspaper, I found in the archives the record of the grand jury. 25 people every 6 months would go in, they would audit the books and records of the government and the operations of the government. They'd write a report of deficiencies, and they would give that to the county board of county commissioners, and they had to fix those things. And that's how they control the government. Okay? So to answer your question, you can't prevent violence, but we are following the law, we're doing it a step at a time, and we're making sure that as we do it, we're educating the public. More and more people are waking up every day. Any other questions?
So you said 1991 was the last time that the books were audited in Manatee County then?
No, I said 1901.
Oh, 1901. Oh, okay. So how do we get back in and
We
put
do
that
our
back in place?
assembly. We
Put
do
that
our
back in
assembly
place. Correct.
in Manatee County.
Okay.
We would then pass a resolution authorizing the grand jury to go audit the board of county commissioners, go audit the sheriff's department, go audit the school department.
Okay.
And out of your assembly, you can select the grand jury, but it's up from the people.
And then you would take those audit reports and you would make them public. How many people in Manatee County know that they've been overcharged by taxes and fees to the tune of $700 million? And that they're letting their politicians sit on top of a huge pile of money. This is nuts.
Question. I may not know what I'm talking about. I thought that we're not supposed to be taxed on anything that we own.
Correct.
So therefore, isn't it irrelevant how much money they've got there, except if they want to give it back to us?
Well, it's our duty to take it back in a prudent fashion and use it carefully.
But they didn't use prudence when they took it.
I know, but
You can send it to it.
the assembly,
Ignorance.
Right.
the assembly could decide that we want to flush all these accounts right away, and the way we'll do it is we'll take the taxpayers list, we'll take the ratio of each person's taxes to the total taxes, what percent did that individual pay, and then we multiply that by the $700 million and here's a check. We flush it all back to the taxpayers according to who paid. We could do that. Or you could say, let's do it over 5 years or 10 years and cut the budget and cut everybody's taxes by 50% and watch the county boom. Watch the county boom, because what's going to happen to that money?
Exactly.
Right? It's going to go into the private economy.
And if we cut the taxes, they're going to say, well, we've got to have something to replace the money that we had in taxes. So they'll come up with another excuse of getting money.
But not if you, meaning we, the
Yeah,
people.
right.
grab the steering wheel with the assembly and say, no, you're not getting more money. You know, every time we go by a construction project, we see one guy working and 3 guys watching.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here?
This past week, I got up in the morning, turned on the television, and caught the tail end of a blurb where a guy in Tampa Bay area, I think it's Pasco County, was hauled into court for something or other, and he claimed to be a sovereign citizen.
It's an
And they kicked him
oxymoron.
out. What do you know about that, if anything?
Well, sovereign citizens, number one, it's an oxymoron. Because when you're a free, sovereign, independent American, you're not a citizen. To be a citizen, you become a subject. Now think about this carefully. You're in the founder's position. You want to set up a new government. Everybody now, the principle is that the sovereignty of the king, once we finish the war, the sovereignty of the king devolved on the people. So you're the king of your domain, you have no subjects. I'm the king of my domain, I have no subjects. As long as our domains don't interfere, we're good to go. Okay? If I injure you or damage your property, I must restore you. That's common law. I don't go pay the government fines and go to jail because I can't restore you. Okay? So now, if you call yourself a sovereign citizen, you're calling yourself with the word sovereign, highest ranking, and citizen, subject of a corporation. It makes no sense. But the term was used to demonize patriots. And they started teaching the cops and the FBI and everything else, look for somebody that's acting patriotic, they're flying a flag, they're doing whatever, and they're carrying around one of these in the back pocket, label them a sovereign citizen, we'll have the press demonize these guys, and we'll throw them in jail or we'll do whatever. So, sovereign citizen, don't use the term. The safest term, if somebody ever asks you, who are you? The safest term is, I'm just one of the people. One of we the people. That's it.
Hey, you were created a man. Be a man. I'm a man. You know. A very other destructive word that a lot of people really should consider stop using, all right, is the word education. Okay, we need to distribute knowledge and truth. Okay, hopefully people get some wisdom and understanding out of it, but we need to get away from using the word education. Here's why. If you look at the definition of education, you got to keep in mind, legalese is all about law. If they got it written down, they're going to consider it law. Or their definition of education is a form of indoctrination for society to get along with one another through the government. Government, which is another bad word. A form of governance is a much better term. Last thing you want is a government. Government literally means mind control. Govern, control, ment, mind. Government. We don't need to be mind controlled. We could use a form of governance if we get a little lost. All right? A form of governance, not a government. And the last thing we need is education. You need to give out knowledge based on truth so they can get some wisdom and understanding to act on it. I was at a political meeting one time where we had a senator up there and he was talking about all the money that he's getting for the city and the county and all that stuff. And I said, why don't you cut all the federal strings attached to it and, you know, maybe we can survive a little easier. And it happened to be a forum with some board of directors of education, school board. Okay. The head of the school board, after the meeting, I said, you mind if I ask you a question? I said, do you know the definition of education? You call yourself an educator for 30 years and you know, you got all these degrees in education. You're so proud of your job. I can understand the pride issue, okay, and what you do, but do you know the definition of education? She says, well, it's giving people, teaching people. She says, you know, I never really thought about it. It's just teaching people. Teaching people what? No, education. It's a social indoctrination. That's all it is. A little kid, oh, I give you homework there. How's that? You give your kids homework all the time, I give you a little homework, right? She came back. I saw her about a month later. She says, thank you. I'll never use that word again.
We can clarify all that in an assembly to the people as we move along in assembly.
Words are very powerful.
Okay, next.
Yeah, and you are right, you gotta watch what you say, because yes, the government, absolutely, if you're kind of patriot, or if you're Charlotte County COPWATCH, it is, Harry can testify to this, and actually, I think I even sent it to Bob, just because I'm holding the police and the sheriff accountable, Punta Gorda Police, it's documented, I'm under investigation. Charlotte County Sheriff, documented, I'm under investigation just to hold them accountable. One more quick one too, can the grand jury do to Charlotte County and the Punta Gorda Police right now, which is a freaking mess, can we do the same thing to them what happened to Fort Myers Police? They're finding out the corruption there is corrupt to the core. Tipping off drug dealers, planting drugs on blacks. I mean, like we're talking, look, you're saying what they do to the vets, what about what they do with all these black people, all the white people? I know ACL's,
Elderly,
yes,
kids.
ACLU is good and bad, but I went to one of their meetings. ACLU is finally waking up that this, you know, we are the biggest prison jail planet on the earth. We are supposed to be a free country.
And the most profitable.
Did you know that Florida is in the top 10 of jailed, imprisoned people in the nation? 100,000. So you're saying 4,000 of the vets? We got 100,000 in there, and you know all of them didn't do a victim crime.
Roughly 80%.
Right.
That's It's written in Revelations, isn't it?
Yep.
It will come and it will move, and it's here.
So let me ask you a question, based on everything, by the way, I've done a lot of traveling around the state. I've gone to the Miami-Dade, I've gone to Broward, I've gone up to Brevard, I've gone to Volusia County. Guess what I'm always told by everybody as I first come into their county? Our county is the worst, most corrupt county. You can't believe what's going on in our county. Everybody says that. I said, look, you can't all be that bad.
It is.
Right? I know. But here's the question that you guys, and I'm not looking for an answer, but you got to wrestle this one to the ground. What are the barriers to doing an assembly in Charlotte County? What are the barriers to doing an assembly in DeSoto County? Because the sooner we stand up and we follow the lawful process to regain the right of self-government, that's all it is. It's the right of self-government. Not having a corporation govern us. We can govern ourselves. Okay? What's the barrier? Why can't we do it? And I think you're going to find there's a lot of people who are just waiting for a small leadership group, 4 or 5 folks, to say, we're going to do this. And here's the process, and boom, boom, boom. You put out the notice. I'll bet you a dozen donuts. It'll work. They'll come. And once you get some momentum, what we're finding in Marion County, you put out a little newspaper. We're doing it once a month up there, and we're announcing, and we're shining the light on the corruption, and you know, one of the simplest way to bring out the corruption is the Florida Constitution requires every public servant to have an oath of office and a bond, surety bond, everyone. And all you do, what the folks in Colorado are doing is, they're putting a demand on every public official for their oaths and the bonds. And they've gone across almost the whole state and gotten all the judges. And when they find a judge that does not have the proper oath, or it wasn't administered by the right people, or it doesn't, the judge doesn't have the bond, he goes on a notice of fraud that's put out by the grand jury, and it's publicized all over the state. So far, 6 judges have resigned. They know they're in trouble.
Right.
So there's plenty of tools, plenty of lawful tools, and ultimately, if we don't turn this thing around, number one, no one else is going to do it for us.
True.
How can you have a self-government society and have someone come in and reach and straighten it out? You can't, because then you're not governing yourself. So we must do it, and if we don't do it, our grandkids and their kids are never, ever going to have anything like the life we've had. That's what motivates me. I got 12 grandkids. I look at those guys. Holy mackerel, they are toast if we don't fix this.
In some circles, they promote don't have documents, don't have government, just don't have any of it.
Yeah, that's called anarchy. And And history has shown that it has to be, in my opinion, to stay as safe as possible. The founders developed certain principles. Okay? Now we're way off course from those principles. We go back to the principles. We stay the course with the founders. We get back to those principles. We get it operating. Now we want to make some changes that the founders didn't do. We want to do some improvements. That's fine. But if you stand up today and advocate some form of government that is outside of what the founders did, you're making a big target on your back. Because you're seditious. You don't want to do that. Right? Now, when you get back to the point where the assembly, we the people meet, and you ask the question of the assembly, what's the smallest government we need to do the job that needs to be done? It's like 90% smaller than today's government. 90%. And imagine what would happen to your freedoms and the liberty and the amazing amount of innovation if government wasn't strangling businesses with regulations. And we can be great again. And in fact, our slogan is "Make America Great Again, one county at a time." So we're trying to ride what Mr. Trump's doing. Just do it one county at a time. Eventually, he's coming from the top down. We're coming from the bottom up. We have a great shot to get this done. Best shot we've had in my lifetime, by far.
And then how are you advertising then? You said you're doing a paper and what else?
We put out a couple thousand copies of a paper.
Right.
Once a month.
Right.
We put it at restaurants, bus stops, truck stops,
right.
Public buildings.
So the two biggest things right now on the internet, I've been doing the internet for a long time, even before my 4 years of COPWATCH. YouTube is freaking #1 right now. I mean, people are turning off the TV and they just want to see real people. Even me, at nighttime, I turn on Roku. I'm just watching real people. Like lately, I've been watching people that go into old abandoned houses or the new small tiny houses. So YouTube is #1. I'm just telling you what's worked. I did it for 4 years. I did 52 million views. I wish I made money. It took the money away a long time ago. But anyways, YouTube is #1. Facebook is #2. All of you, everybody gets on Facebook. You start friending friends, putting stuff on your page. They see it. And then, like I said, one way to reach people that are being affected by this out of control government is like I said, my thought is, start sending these postcards or whatever, or paper, to these people that are being, ticketed, arrested, the code Nazi stuff. You've seen some of the stuff that Kesselriggers did, right? He takes these 2-hour kangaroo courts and picks it apart, and just what they're doing to people, what they did to that vet. Took his freaking house, his property.
Let me tell you one other thing, and we got to close.
All right.
We have one of our guys in Brevard County. He's a real patriot, 84-year-old guy. And he came up with the idea. He said, let me see if I can't get a voters list. So we went down, and for $10, he gets a voters list. So what's he doing? He doesn't care about the Democrats. He doesn't care about the Republicans. He looks for the independents. He got 5,000 email addresses for the independents of Brevard County. These are the folks.
That is good. That's
right?
very good. Excellent.
Right?
Oh, I like it.
Right? And he's just doing emails, cheap emails. We're just starting. There's all kinds of very low-cost ways. The cost is not the barrier.
Right.
This is really, it's up to us. We got to grab the wheel. We got to understand what we're doing. And by the way, I gave you a lot of the history that came from 3.5 years of my study. We don't need to teach everybody all that stuff. All we've got to teach them is the right way forward. It's the assembly, it's the grand jury, it's the sheriffs on the land jurisdiction. Shut these corporations down and we're off to the races. America can be great again. Thanks very much. Look forward to meeting you next time. And give Bill and I a question or an email if you have any questions.
I have, what was the guy that spoke at the, on the Constitution?
Lake,
Huh?
Lake, is that his first name?
The one that went before the
Constitution.
Oh, Mark Schminner?
I've got him. If anybody wants to listen to this after we're done here, You know, I've got it if you want to listen to it.
It's
It's
only
very
about 4
short.
minutes long, is it?
Yeah.
Shorter than one.
Where did he post that?
It's on YouTube.
I know, I got it. I ripped it off the site. He gave it to me. So me and Mark have met multiple times. I'm almost ready to join the Libertarian Party because I'm a recovering Republican. But anyways, and the Libertarian Party, I'm telling you guys, if you want to see some other people that are fighting, the Libertarians are, I mean, they're fighting hard so many different ways, man.
Can you get a message to them about us in Charlotte County looking to put an assembly together?
I'll absolutely try, not a problem. Mark's already involved with it, right?
To your point, you can go to the Libertarian Party,
Right.
grab their platform for 2017, 2018.
Right.
We can solve all of those problems with the Constitution for the county. We can solve
True.
them all.
True. Very true. Good point.
Thank you.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago. And so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt-free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.